I don't think Oregon, as an athletic department, could have had a better weekend. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So if you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show. We recently hit 5,600 subs on YouTube. Can we get to 6,000? I believe that we can. I also know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off! We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Oregon is in full game on mode. Derrick Harmon, Peyton Woodyard, talked about him last week on the show. They are both Ducks. We'll talk about their arrivals, and oh my gosh, I am not kidding when I say I might have higher expectations for Oregon basketball than Oregon football, but they're pretty high for Dan Lanning's program right now because Derrick Harmon comes over from Michigan State where he's a multi-year player, impact guy. His numbers are not going to blow you away along the defensive line. It's just hard to generate numbers on the interior. Last year, he had just 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He had 40 total tackles in a full season, 12 games playing for Michigan State. And he was not the only guy on that defensive line to hit the transfer portal, but this is a guy that went in the portal in January, probably wanted to wait and see, or wasn't sure what Jonathan Smith brought to the table, so he stuck around in East Lansing, decided he wanted to go elsewhere, and Oregon goes and plugs an immediate need. And I think it was the last piece of the puzzle for Oregon defensively. I now look at this unit as incredibly complete because the question was who starts at the other interior defensive lineman position, because left to right, right to left, outside in, however you want to think about it. Jordan Burch is one starter. Mateo Uyunglele, or probably Tatum Tuioti, frankly, is another starter on the edge. Jamari Caldwell, the Houston transfer, starts. And now you've got Derrick Harmon from Michigan State. And this is such a great move for the Ducks because the questions we were asking previously was, well, which young guy is going to pop? And we saw a number of them in the spring game. Mikael Gardner looked good. Amari Washington has looked good. Terrence Green has showed some flashes as well. But those guys are now going to be called upon. They're still important for Oregon's defense this year. But they're going to be called upon in a rotation capacity. They're not going to be called upon in a starting capacity. And you get Harmon, who is a proven multi-year player at the power level, impact guy, and you start him next to Jamari Caldwell. This is a freakishly good Oregon defensive front. I think it is better than last year. I really do. And you lose a guy like Dorless, that's a tough thing to say. But I think the depth with those young guys having a year in the system to get their bodies into game shape and the impact that they can potentially make, I think this defensive front is nasty, absolutely nasty. And it was really the only thing left. Now, we'll talk about Peyton Woodyard at the safety position later in the show, but you just can't overstate the move that this Derrick Harmon addition adds to the Ducks. And he was the better of the two defensive tackle transfers coming out of Michigan State. Simeon Barrow Jr. was the other one, but Harmon had considered Oregon before. When he went back into the portal, Oregon apparently made contact, got the job done. This is a guy who last year, according to Pro Football Focus, had a 78 overall grade on the interior, 72 on the pass rush, 81 against the run, which is what I always think fundamentally is the number one job for interior defensive linemen. If you're going to have a great pass defense, you need edge players that get after the quarterback, and you need good DBs. If you're going to be good against the run, you need good interior defensive linemen and good linebackers. And this Oregon defense is now completely stacked with all-conference caliber guys at every single level. Multiple all-conference caliber guys at every single level. I mean, having Caldwell and Harmon in there to replace guys from last year that were good players, particularly Brandon Dorless, That's huge. I mean, this is just a huge, huge move. It came on the heels of Ben Roberts hitting the transfer portal after the spring game. And, that move now in hindsight makes a lot of sense. And I talked at the time on Thursday's show that, Roberts leaving means one of two things. They love the young guys or they're going to add a transfer. And the answer could be both. The answer could absolutely be both, but certainly getting Harmon, I think, raises the profile of this Oregon defense, because this is a guy that comes in, plug and play starter. You don't have any questions. You're not asking too much of him. You know that he can start. You know he can be what Oregon is going to expect him to be. And look, something I might explore later this week on the show is, when was the last time it felt like Oregon had a defensive line this good? I thought their defensive line was really good last year. You know why? Because it was. Oregon's defense was really good last year, 17 points per game. I think that number is going to come down. I think when you are this good at all three levels and you're going up against a worse lineup of offenses than a season ago, I think that 17 points per game number is going to drop, because the best offense Oregon faces on paper is Ohio State. The second best is, honestly, not kidding here, probably Washington. And they've got offensive line questions, but they've got a veteran quarterback in Will Rogers who's solid, and they've got a couple of real weapons. And I think if Washington is the second best offense on your schedule, I'm trying to think, who could potentially be better. And I don't see one on there. I don't think Oregon State's quarterback situation is super solid. Boise State, they've got Malachi Nelson, a former 5-star. I don't know what the rest of their weapons look like, but it is just not as vaunted of a lineup of quarterbacks and offenses as last year. And I think Oregon arguably is going to have an even better defense. I think you go from Kyrie Jackson at corner to Jabbar Muhammad, and that's at the very least a lateral move, maybe even an upgrade, though Jackson was incredibly good. I don't want to undersell him there, and he was taken in the 4th round by, I think, the Minnesota Vikings, as there was a run on Ducks in the 4th round of the draft. So I'm stoked. I'm so fired up. Harmon was considering some other big time schools. He was when he was plucked out of the portal by Oregon, the highest rated defensive lineman. And there are some good ones in there. Dominic Williams, a transfer from TCU, he's still looking for a home. And there are some other names. Simeon Barrows, I mentioned, from Michigan State. There are still other defensive line prospects in the transfer portal, but Harmon was the best one available. Oregon was able to go get him. Feather in the cap, Dan Lanning, Tosh Lupoy, and Tony Tuioti, and anybody else that was involved here. This is such a great pickup for the Ducks. I love what it means for the defense. I love what it means for the defensive line specifically, and I feel so good about Oregon at every level. And man, there were big time schools after him for a reason. I am excited. Exciting times to be an Oregon Duck fan. Drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments below, or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. He was not the only transfer, Derrick Harmon that is, to join the Ducks. And the other name, Peyton Woodyard, little bit curious. Just it's a reality of the college football world that you'll have moves like this. I don't know if Woodyard makes the same level of impact for the Ducks, but I love the move anyway. I also love LinkedIn Jobs. Why? They're the best. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. It's why over 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. What a time to be a Duck. Good vibes. Good vibes. Oregon with Derrick Harmon now and Peyton Woodyard, by the way, is now up to the second best transfer portal class in college football in the 2024 cycle, trailing only Ole Miss. And Ole Miss has brought in some dudes. I love what Oregon's brought to the table. So Peyton Woodyard is another addition that Oregon adds. And curious, speaking of 24/7 Sports, he was the 115th best player in the 2024 recruiting cycle. He had a 4-star composite rating in the 94 range, 94.76, and he grades as a 3-star transfer. I don't exactly get how that works. I don't know if that would have given Oregon the number 1 transfer portal class, but this is a loaded lineup of guys. You look at where Woodyard slots in, and I don't think he makes as big of an impact as Derrick Harmon. But I love that the portal moves for Oregon are mostly win now, immediate impact starters, but they aren't all those sorts of guys. So the transfer portal class looks something like this now. Dylan Gabriel, Matthew Bedford, Jay Harris, Atticus Sappington, Cam Alexander, Evan Stewart, Jamari Caldwell, Brandon Johnson, Jabbar Muhammad, Dante Moore, Kobe Savage, Derrick Harmon. They brought in Cruz Rushing from Arizona as well, a safety. I believe that is Elijah Rushing's brother, the 5-star Oregon true freshman. And then Peyton Woodyard, the safety from Alabama. So that transfer portal class has got guys like Woodyard and Dante Moore and maybe even Jay Harris that aren't needed this year, that they can come in, kind of develop, get their feet under them, get an understanding for what Oregon's about and how they can succeed and what the plan is, everything like that, and they can be impact guys next year. And I think for Peyton Woodyard, Oregon fans should think of this as a 2024 recruitment because that's exactly what he is. Typically, you add a transfer, even a guy like Jay Harris, who's a running back from Division II Northwest Missouri State, that's a guy who's played college football at the Division II level. Maybe he needs a little bit of adjustment time to the Division I game, but in the spring game, I tell you what, he looked awesome. He looked really, really good. I was impressed. He can be an absolute stud, and he's just a big, big body in that backfield. But for Woodyard, 2024 recruit, commits to Nick Saban in Alabama, gives Kalen DeBoer the old college try, and after spring football says, no, this is not the spot for me. And he's one of several Crimson Tide defensive backs to hit the portal. They brought in a couple guys as well. Keon Sabb, the Michigan safety, who Oregon was after. He's gone over to Alabama, and so that sends Woodyard the Ducks' way. That might not be a direct correlation, but at the very least, that's how it's gone down at the outset a little bit. But Woodyard playing in 2024, I don't think is a guarantee. Could it happen? Yes. I absolutely think that Woodyard could play with the Ducks or play for the Ducks meaningful snaps in 2024 because the safety room is not the deepest, right? Cody DeCambra, former 4-star, he transferred out, and Kobe Savage came in from Kansas State. Tysheem Johnson is back, and then you kind of got Tyler Turner, the redshirt freshman, Aaron Flowers, the true freshman. Flowers looked awesome in the spring game as well. Here's what I wonder with Woodyard. Is he going to actually be able to step in and play over the top as a true freshman? Because if he's going to be a full-time starter, which again, as we have seen, there are several other examples over the last couple of cycles for the Ducks as well, just because you're a transfer doesn't automatically mean you're coming in and starting right away. We have seen guys come in and sit. We've seen guys come in and just not win the job, frankly. And, I think Connor Soley came over as a transfer linebacker from ASU, been mostly a special teams guy. So I don't think it's automatic, but you do tend to see transfers come in and start right away. But I think of this more as a high school recruit. Now, he's a talented guy. He's a talented guy. I'll have Brian Smith on later this week to talk about, what he brings to the table and where he plays. We talked about him a little bit on Friday's show as well. But if he's a guy, and I think Brian said he plays a little bit more down in the box, but if they like his over-the-top skills and they think he can be one of your 2 deep safeties, then maybe he can carve out a starting caliber or starting adjacent role for himself this season. But I think for the Ducks, Kobe Savage, the Kansas State transfer, that's one of your safeties. But your other deep safety, is it Tysheem Johnson? Because I have not been impressed with Tysheem Johnson's over-the-top playmaking ability. I like Tysheem as a blitzer. I like him in the run game. I like him in short yardage coverage situations. I don't think he's a super rangy ball hawk on the back end. So if Woodyard showcases that sort of talent, maybe he comes in and then it's Tysheem Johnson and Brandon Johnson, the Duke transfer who hasn't arrived yet. Maybe he's a guy, or those 2 guys are swapping each other out at nickel. And those are, your three starting safeties. Maybe. Or maybe they like Tyler Turner. I don't know. We do not have a depth chart. We will not see one for quite some time, and we can speculate about it from now until the season starts. But certainly having Woodyard in the mix, I like it because that's a position that is going to lose guys after this year anyway. I believe Kobe Savage is done after this year. Tysheem Johnson also out of eligibility after this season. So along with Aaron Flowers, this is essentially just having another talented body in the room who might see the field a little bit this year and could pop and be a starter next year if he doesn't see the field a ton this season. So I think Woodyard is a different sort of transfer for the Ducks compared to Derrick Harmon, who is an instant impact sort of guy. But I do like the move. I think that it definitely makes sense. Let's hop into the mailbag here. And by the way, drop all your questions. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter. If you want priority access and all sorts of other perks, go join the growing flock over at Subtext. Link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This question from MotoMeister1579. Mailbag question. What Oregon player do you believe has the highest ceiling? To add on to that, which Oregon player do you see developing into a first-round NFL talent, excluding Jabbar Muhammad and Tez Johnson? Well, I don't think Tez is a first-round guy. He's not big enough. He can get drafted, perhaps. Don't think he's necessarily a first-round talent in there. But I think a player that can work himself into a first-round conversation that wouldn't currently be there is Jordan Birch. And I think with the addition of Derrick Harmon, that is especially applicable. So one thing I loved about the Jordan Birch addition last season for the Ducks and why the defensive line was so much better and the pressure rate and the sack numbers, it was all better from 2022, and that showed with the defense allowing 10 fewer points per game. I love that move because it felt like Brandon Dorlus was at times the only guy. Like DJ Johnson had glimpses, but he wasn't necessarily as consistent. And Jordan Birch is someone that commands a lot of attention or double teams up front. That opens up 1v1s for the rest of the guys, and they can really shine. And I think Dorlus had an awesome season, not in a small part because, he's a talented player, of course. Having Jordan Birch there helped him reach his full potential. And I think this applies to Birch when you bring in Harmon and you've got Jamari Caldwell and the trio of soon-to-be true sophomores in Blake Purchase, Tatum Tuioti, and Mateo Uyunglele. Sorry, I need another sip of water. Give me a sec. Appreciate your patience. Just trying to give you the best show I can. That's a ridiculously deep and talented defensive line, but having Harmon or Caldwell, or really Harmon and Caldwell next to Birch, I think frees him up a little because these guys are a presence. So I think the more 1v1s, you get that sort of guy, he is a physical freak. 6'5", I don't know what his weight is listed at, but that's a guy who can really, I think, take a step forward and benefit tremendously from having come back to Oregon for his senior season. So I like that question. The highest ceiling, man, that's tough. There are a number of different directions you can go with this. And if you can't put Jabbar Muhammad in there, I'm going to go with Evan Stewart, the Texas A&M transfer. That guy's a freak. I don't really think he got all the chances in the world to show it in the spring game. But if you remember the long pass that he caught, the two long passes that he caught, he pinned one ball as he was being interfered with against his shoulder pad with just his right hand. And then the other long pass he caught from Gabriel was a deep shot where Gabriel and the offense were backed up inside, I think, their own 5-yard line. And he was working on, I think it was Cam Alexander, who they are big fans of at the cornerback position, by the way. Alexander, the UTSA transfer, that guy's a stud. Evan Stewart had beaten him by like 5 yards. And it's one thing if that were a true freshman and he's still working his way into the rotation or something like that, but he'd beaten him by 5. You don't see that sort of separation super often. Even Troy Franklin last year in the spring game wasn't getting 5 yards away. I think Stewart's physical talents are just so immense that I'd say he's got the biggest ceiling. He's also got a ton of room to grow. Like, we've seen glimpses of what his potential can be. And Texas A&M just didn't give him a great situation. Didn't give him a great opportunity to showcase what he can do. Oregon has done that with a great receiving core and a good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel and a great quarterback room in general. So, yeah, I think Evan Stewart has got the highest ceiling. I think Josh Connerly could be in that mix as well at left tackle, but I think Stewart's probably the place I'm going to go with that one. Love the question, though. Keep them coming. We got plenty of mailbag questions we'll get to later in the week, but oh my gosh. I was jittery. I am not exaggerating. I was jittery at the airport because of what Dana Altman did. All right, game off. We've got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in the game. You don't want to miss it. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments. You work together to build up each other's boards, and the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis if you want to taunt your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent, frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench, go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. I could not contain my excitement on what was it, Friday? I think it was Friday when the TJ Bamba news got announced. So recently, what's the term I'm looking for? Previously on Oregon Basketball Adds Impact Transfers, Raheem Moss came over from Toledo, where he was a first-team All-MAC selection. He averaged 15 points a game. That was a career high. And he's been in college basketball for the past 3 years. That guy came over 6'4", 205, 210. Not a great three-point shooter, but good enough, can score, inside, got a great float game. I saw him and thought, this is Jermaine Couisnard. Maybe not at the same volume, but stylistically, same sort of guy. I thought Oregon was done adding shooting guards. I thought they were just waiting to see what happens with N'Faly Dante, which I'll get to in just a moment, because I feel pretty, I'd say 60-40, that Oregon is going to be able to get N'Faly Dante another year of eligibility. But I'll get to that in a sec. TJ Bamba was a transfer portal target that I had for Oregon this offseason because they hadn't yet added Raheem Moss. And so you were missing a starting two guard. And I, watched Des Lindsey's film and thought, all right, he's solid. He can do some nice things. I don't know if he's a starter. Well, he's definitely not a starter now. TJ Bamba is. That is a bona fide starting two guard. This is a guy who over the last couple of seasons at Villanova this past year averaged 10 points, 3.5 rebounds a game, 37% three-point shooter. Now, that on the surface sounds pretty solid. Okay, the year prior at Washington State, things didn't go as well as he was hoping with the Wildcats back east. So he's coming back west for his final year of eligibility. The year before at Washington State, he was a 16-point-a-game scorer, almost 4 boards a game, also 37% from beyond the arc. And he was, I think a lot of Oregon fans might remember TJ Bamba from, Washington State beating Oregon from time to time. He was an incredibly highly coveted transfer target this past year, and Villanova was not good. They didn't make the tournament. And I've mentioned this before. It bears repeating. A couple of things bear repeating. Number one, I don't think the portal class is this loaded if Oregon doesn't make the NCAA tournament and win a first-round game against South Carolina. They were knocking on the door of a Sweet 16 appearance. That creates buzz, momentum, interest, intrigue, and I think they're paying it off. Number two, the return of Tony Stubblefield. For a long time, this Oregon recruiting class in 2024, high school and portal, had one guy, Ibrahima Traore, who is fairly athletic. He's a little bit smaller for a center at 6'8", but could certainly be a rotation guy and get those sorts of minutes. I think he can be a Frank Kepnong type player for the Ducks off the bench as a true freshman. We'll see what he's able to contribute in his first year of college basketball, but all the guys coming back, They only had Traore, and then they started to get, KJ Evans is coming back, and Bam Tracy's coming back, and Shellstad's returning. Then they had Brandon Angel from Stanford. Oh, okay, hey, that's a really, really nice move. Oh, Nate Biddle's coming back. Oh, okay, hey, there's another one. Oh, hey, look, Raheem Moss. Oh, well, there's your starting 2-guard. Nope, we're getting TJ Bamba. This came completely out of left field for me. Did not see it coming, was not expecting it. I was literally jumping around in the Las Vegas airport. I was so excited because this is a stupidly deep Oregon basketball team that they are about to roll out. And Bamba goes beyond my wildest dreams. I would have been thrilled and I would have been happy with Oregon's depth if they had never added Raheem Moss and only brought in TJ Bamba. I would have told you that Bamba was a higher priority guy than Raheem Moss. The fact that they got Moss and then got Bamba, I think speaks to the culture that everyone is clearly understanding at Oregon. We're trying to win now. We're trying to reestablish ourselves on the back of the NCAA tournament run as, hey, this is a perennial top 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Because that's what it was before, things went south a little bit relative to the standard that Dana Altman has set. And one of you DM me, forget who it was. Might have been Peyton, who's an everydayer out there. But you know who you are, whoever sent me this message. That at some level, is this Dana Altman's FU to everyone and anyone who said that he needed to go, that he needed to retire? You want me out of here? You know what? Here's an NCAA tournament appearance, a Pac-12 tournament win, and here is the best portal class Oregon has pulled in quite some time. I haven't done a year-by-year comparison, but this it's loaded. It's just absolutely, positively loaded. And Bamba is going to start. Moss will come off the bench. Bartholomew will come off the bench. Cook probably comes off the bench at least at first. The depth on this team is insane. Now, Oregon has had hilariously bad luck with injuries over the last several years. Is everyone going to stay healthy? Probably not. But the depth is there everywhere you look. Bigs, wings, guards, shooters. It's all there. It's all there. And Bamba can be one of your go-to scorers. I struggle to try and theorize what Oregon looks like at full strength. There's so many mouths to feed here. And Bamba is a guy that could be your number one scorer. He had NBA draft prospects after that great year at Washington State. He went to Villanova, which, if we all remember, won 2 national titles in a 3-year span. That's a big-time program. That's a big-time program. And to have this move take place is just utterly outstanding. It is completely and utterly outstanding. And this is an even better, if you want to look at it like this, replacement for Jermaine Couisnard than Raheem Moss, who, according to a coach that coached against him over in the Mid-American Conference at the Power 4 level, Power 5, whatever it is now, is probably closer to a 10, 12-point a game scorer than a 15-point a game guy. I don't have to wonder what TJ Bamba does against Power 5 competition. He can be a 14 to 16-point a game scorer on average. That's what Couisnard was. You pair him with Shellstad, who I think has, he had a great season, first of all, can have an even better one. Is Bamba your go-to guy? Is Shellstad your go-to guy? How does KJ Evans work into the fold? Where does Brandon Angel's scoring come from? This team is so good. Oregon's going into the Big Ten to make some noise. I mean some major noise. And it is a beautiful thing to see. And look, I don't even know if I'll have the words to spit out what my thoughts are if N'Faly Dante is granted a 6th year of eligibility. This is not confirmed, but first thing to know, N'Faly Dante got an NBA Combine invite. That does not mean he's going into the NBA draft. It does not mean he will not return to college. I know that because Adama Alpha Ball, who is a player for my alma mater, Santa Clara, he has announced that he's returning to the Broncos, and he's going to be at this event as well. So I think it's just a chance for NBA scouts to get another look at N'Faly Dante in person. But there are internal efforts, or so I have been told, by pretty solid sources, I will say. There have been efforts not just to get Dante a 6th year, but to prepare further action should that waiver get denied. So if the NCAA approves it, and then N'Faly Dante's the starting center and Nate Biddle's the backup, oh my goodness. I mean, this is, I don't want to make like too big a bold claims right now. This team should be the best chance to get to the Final Four again since the last team that got there. That's where this roster looks like it is at. And if N'Faly Dante's in the middle, oh my gosh, it'd be huge. And I feel more than 50% confident right now. Not a guarantee, but I feel more than 50% confident Dante's going to be back next year. And if he is, I'm going to have another segment just like this. I cannot contain my excitement for this upcoming athletic season. You're going to have an Oregon football and basketball team that are going to step into the Big Ten and expected to contend right away. And it's because of what they have done in the transfer portal in the last few weeks. Cannot get enough of it. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.